Eric Brotman, thank you so much for coming on the Inner Edison Podcast. I appreciate you being here today.
Ed, it's great to be here. I'm excited.
Well, let's see how you feel at the end.
All right, we'll see.
All right. All right. So a lot of people aren't going to know who you are, your background, who's on my show, because people on my show are they're entrepreneurs starting out, been doing it for a while, looking for different things, but they understand that your greatest accomplishments come from your greatest defeats. And if you don't understand that, you need to listen to my show more. I'm just saying in general. So you're like me. You've been in the game for a while, doing certain things.
I have.
Yeah. So how did you always want to grow up to be in the financial stuff, the world?
No. In fact, I was as a kid, I was going to play for the Baltimore Colts, and there's so many reasons why that didn't happen. None the least of which was I was small and slow growing up, and that professional football was out. I actually went to school and studied English and psychology, and thought I was going to go to law school. And the best $1,000 I ever spent in my life was the deposit for law school when I didn't go.
Really?
Hands down. I am so happy every day that I didn't go to law school. I don't know that many happy lawyers. And so I had gone to work at a legal department of a brokerage firm, and I fell in love with the financial business. It was a total accident. I mean, I studied English and psychology. I was a liberal arts guy, thinking about law school, and I wound up in finance. And that was almost 32 years ago.
What year did you start?
I started my practice in 1994.
Right.
And
But
I
how when
started
did
the
you get
company
into financial at this whole field? When did you get into that?
1994.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, no, I got into the field in 94, and I started the company. I went solo in 2003. So
Okay.
we're now, as an organization, we're now 22 years old.
No, I just wanted to see because I know people who are in your industry who was during the Black Monday, the fun part.
I'm not quite old enough for that, but I did launch with a more senior guy. At one point, I launched a firm, and we moved into our new space March 29th of 2000, which was 4 days after the market peak for Y2K. So, it wasn't quite Black Monday, but it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, but Y2K wasn't so bad as they thought it was going to be. I mean, it was such hype on how everything was not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, the grid didn't go down, planes didn't fall out of the sky, but the market took a hit because there was so much. The S&P was so heavily weighted towards IT, and every company and every family had bought new computers because they were worried about the 4-digit year. And so, one quarter into the 2000 year, nobody needed a computer. So the market just dried up, and all those folks got fired out west who were the programmers. All those young people making huge money suddenly weren't.
Yeah, it's so funny how nobody thought for the future back then.
You
I
know,
mean, past a certain point,
yeah.
2010 is going to be amazing. 2025, we're going to be, flying all over the place.
Mhm.
None of that's ever happened.
No, I mean, I certainly think there's been some amazing innovations. I
Of
mean, the
course.
world's innovating quickly, but do we have hovercrafts? Not yet. It won't be long. Someday in our lifetime. Look, there'll be a generation that doesn't learn to drive.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, I can
I
see
think that's definitely coming.
that. Yeah. Well, I can see once they figure out how to get the cars not to run into each other, then they can then work on getting the planes not to run into each other with our hover stuff. And then,
Fair.
yeah, and I know a lot of people are this will think this is political, but if Elon Musk, if they just let him do his stuff, he'll probably be the one that comes up with all that so that we can go with our hoverboards everywhere and not have to worry about it. He's just so smart. I know there's a lot of smart guys out there, all of them.
Yeah, no, I'm not betting against him. He and I were actually classmates in college, although I did not know him. We were the same year at Penn. So I'm rooting for him from that standpoint for sure.
Okay. Well, it just seems like, just let these guys, they're so smart guys who don't know a lot of common sense, how to deal with people. But they're super, super smart. And they're just, I remember I was in a mastermind and the guy was on stage, was like, okay, everybody, raise your hand if I say something that you are, and keep it up until, and basically everybody was on the autism scale or whatever you want to call it. I mean, autistic. And they're all, but you're business owners, and that's how it usually works. You have to be a little different in order to do the stuff that you do.
Well, I think we're probably all ADHD. We weren't diagnosed, but I think there's definitely some of that. Entrepreneurs have are cut from a certain cloth, and you have to be willing to take risk, and you have to sort of build the plane while you fly it sometimes. And it's an experience. Not a lot of people, most people don't want that. Most people want to know every Friday or every other Friday what their paycheck's going to be and what they have to do to get to the next level. And it's very linear. And in our world, it's just not.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of times in our world, we take risks that we could lose everything.
Yeah.
And if you listen to Alex Hormozy, he goes, "Don't even talk to me until you lost it twice." You
I
know,
I I was 30 years old when I started the company. I was divorced. I was, largely my net worth was 0. I was literally starting over. I had a first marriage that was, very short, but very expensive, and at the end of the day, we came up with a property settlement agreement that avoided lots of conflict. I offered her everything, and she took it, and that way we didn't have to fight. It was lovely,
for
and
her.
so yeah, well, it was fine for me too. I got to start over. I started over literally clean slate at 30 and, borrowed money from everywhere. No bank would lend to me. The same banks that were tripping over themselves to give us student loans when we're 18 and have no collateral, no business plan, and no business borrowing that kind of money. Then when you want to start a business and you have pro formas and you have a business plan, won't lend it to you until you have 2 years of tax returns.
Well, that's
So
because you can't bankrupt student debt.
that's true. No, you're right.
That stays with you forever. And
You're
I know
right.
some people, I'm like, well, if you want to do it, just go take an equity, if you're go take a unsecured line out, pay off your student loans, and then go bankrupt.
Well, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I suppose that's true. I have,
I'm not saying to do it, but if you're trying to,
yeah,
if you're going down that
yeah.
road, you might as well have it paid off with another line that you can get rid of.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah. I had to borrow from every place. I borrowed from my life insurance. I borrowed from my house. I borrowed from my mom. I borrowed from credit cards. I borrowed from everywhere. And, I said, we're doing this. And if it doesn't work out, I'm sunk. And, I paid mom back first because you have to have a good credit line there. I didn't want to be uninvited to Thanksgiving and such. So that line got paid back, but it was an awesome journey. And I just remember listening to Eminem in the car on the way to work every day. Like I had to almost plug into a socket, like I'm ready to go. And it was a euphoric but exciting time.
Did you always, okay, you went to school and you did what you did.
Yeah.
At what point did you want to become an entrepreneur?
I think I was probably born to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't have the nerve. Certainly, had I stayed married the first time, I don't know that I would have had the nerve to do it. I mean, I had expenses and responsibilities, and there were other people counting on me. If I was single and decided to do it and it didn't work, and I lived under a bridge, I wasn't taking anybody with me. And so I actually credit the fact that the first marriage ended, for allowing me to take that leap of faith, because I'm really not sure I would have done it. I don't know that I'd have had the nerve to do it as a married person with with that kind of responsibility.
Because you're worried about the risk of what's going to happen to the other person.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just you, it's kind of like jumping out of an airplane or something. If it's just you, go for it. If you're pulling 3 people with you and maybe it's against their will, that's a tough sell.
Yeah, but people don't realize that when you don't work for yourself, you are at risk of losing everything all the time because your employer doesn't care about you. I don't care what they say. They care about the stockholders and everybody else. And I'm not being negative about this and don't think I'm not a capitalist because I am, but
Mhm.
you have to understand the company is there for the shareholders. They're not for the
Yeah.
employees, unless the employees, it's ESOP and it's their part ownership.
Well, and we've built something at BFG to make sure that employees do have the opportunity to buy in after a period of time, and so we've actually started. It's not an ESOP, but there is skin in the game, and we're trying to align ourselves for that very reason because it is a scary thing to suddenly be out of work. Unemployment's one of the few things you really can't plan for. I know the government has a plan for you, but it's paltry, and so you really, of all the things you can insure, that's one you really can't.
Yeah, but I mean, the only thing is on entrepreneur, they don't have anything for you
That's
unless it's
true.
during the pandemic. So I was wondering when they during the pandemic, they gave unemployment to self-employed people. So I was like, okay, if they give it to you now, will they have to give it to you in the future?
Nope, absolutely not. That was a lifeline, to try and keep people eating and keep people from, I guess, rioting in the streets. But there was the pandemic actually strangely was really good for our business. I know that sounds
In mind
absurd, but it was really good for our business. First of all, we learned how to work remotely. We learned how to, and we have clients in 37 states. I was much more of a road warrior then than I am now. And I still travel, but not like I did because I don't have to, because we can do this.
right. It's like I don't even. I'm never at my office unless I stop by there to pick something up, and I don't even need it, but I have to have it. If you
Yeah.
understand, I'm in the mortgage industry.
Yeah.
You have to have a location for credit. Period. That's the only thing that they have not been able to get rid of. And I got tons of people always worked from home, but the staff itself didn't during the pandemic. I worked from home and the other people did. And then the staff was still working. And then my wife actually had to come home because she was working for Kaiser. And
Mm.
at that point we couldn't talk in the same house. She said I was too loud. And so I went to work and sent everybody else home.
I find that incredibly hard to believe. You don't
Yeah,
seem
I
that
do
loud
too.
to me.
Yeah, I don't either. I got
Yeah.
headphones on. I can't even hear me.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No, but I mean, for the pandemic itself, it was great for our industry. We messed up our industry because we put everybody at such low rates that it just therefore has messed up the whole industry. Plus us watching the inflation rate go up, interest rate go up 5% really didn't help either.
No, and some of it was predictable. I mean, when the government prints that much money,
Oh, yeah.
it's going to devalue the dollar. It had to happen. And everyone knew. We didn't know how soon, we didn't know how fast, we didn't know for how long. But we knew it was coming. It was just a matter of when. And I think for mortgage originators, particularly, and those who were doing refinances, there was this conversation of, sort of hurry up and get in while rates are this low. And they were low for so long, people got complacent. I mean, there's a whole generation who doesn't remember rates like this. And by the way, a 6 or 6.5% is better than my first house was financed. I don't know about you, but these rates aren't particularly high, but they feel high when you're used to darn near zero.
Well, when the problem is, so for me, I took people from 13 to 9 when I got in, and they loved me.
Yeah.
I was getting people to something, and they're like, "Is that the best you can do?" There's your issue.
Well,
Right. Yeah.
in our business, it's very similar. In our business in 1999, people were saying, my neighbor's account is up 100%. I'm up 48. What's wrong with you? I mean, because there was such euphoria, and Money Magazine was printing things that said, your neighbor's getting rich. Why aren't you? And all that stuff. And of course, it was fool's errand in lots of ways. And
That was a .com, right?
it was yes. Pets.com, if you'll recall,
I
was
remember
worth.
them all, dude. I was around there in that very town in San Diego and so that's where I was. And I was not, I was in the mortgage industry, but we just had a lot of money we played with back then. A wholly different world.
Yeah, I mean, and these companies, some of them had revenue, none of them had profit. None of them. It was all this promise that it's going to change the world, and in some ways it did, but there were winners and losers, and the losers went completely to nothing. And so, but when markets are good, people wonder if they need a financial advisor. This is really simple. And when markets are lousy, everybody says, "Ooh, we should probably talk to somebody." And so, rather than going back and forth, it's nice to have an accountability partner and a co-pilot along the way, I think.
Yeah, you need to have a financial advisor. I have a radio show, and I have a few that come on, and that's who talking about things because it's important to understand certain things. And the one that I've known the best, he was during that Black Monday, and he worked for E.F. Hutton.
Oh,
so not everybody understands that.
I remember those commercials. Do you remember those commercials? Those commercials were on during the NFL games. It was when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. That was the whole, because they had inside baseball, apparently.
And that was the old when people learned actually how to talk and sell and through the phone, and you actually picked up the phone, called people, and did the things that we used to do. In the mortgage industry, I learned how to hear on the phone. Actually, I was in the mortgage industry and then got out of it and worked for Blue Cross in Thousand Oaks. And at that point, I learned what people were saying because I did small business sales, and I'd actually talk to people and did so many phone calls. I could actually hear the tones and inflections in people's voices. So I knew what they were saying, not what they just were saying. And it just paid off when I came back in the industry. And then it's helped me now what I do now, which is radio, podcasting. Plus I still do all the mortgage stuff.
Well, I think body language is important, and it's very difficult on the phone. Although you're right, you get good at it. You sense tonality and those kinds of things, pacing. You can sense discomfort. You can sense unease. But there's something to body language. People don't always say what they mean, for sure, and they don't always say what they're actually thinking. Sometimes that's good, actually, but a lot of times that's not ideal because you really want honest and approachable feedback.
Yeah, and sometimes they're not saying anything, and people think they're saying something with their body language. That's just you just never know. I mean, there's
Fair.
a friend of mine does facial recognition. He can tell you everything about you from your eyebrows and nose, and you name it. He could tell you everything about you, and you'll be shocked that he's so right. And the same thing that body experts can tell you about what your language is telling you about your body. And so, and now if you can listen to people on the phone, because we're at that point, either you're going to do Zoom, video,
Mhm.
or you're going to be on the phone with them. You're going to do one of those two things because that's the only way to connect with people. Texting doesn't work because when I text you, whatever happened to you at moment before you read my text is how you're reading my text.
Yeah, I think you're right. Texting first of all, texting is almost impossible in our business. There are so many rules against it that we just don't text professionally. But there's a sense sometimes when a text message comes in that it's always urgent. And I don't know about you, but I'm starting to get a lot of spam by text that is so
Mhm.
annoying. It's like the cold calls back in the day, and you got rid of our home phones so that didn't bother us anymore. Now, if I don't know the number, I don't answer it. It's a different world in that way. And email, if it goes to spam, you don't even necessarily see that it happened. So that's difficult. And voicemail, of course, is where messages go to die.
That's right. To a certain point. But if you call, I tell people, you call me, you don't leave a message, I think it's a butt dial because I'm not going to call somebody back who accidentally called me because, that's just not how it works these days. For me, anyway, my kids, I know they call me and I'm supposed to call them right back.
Right.
That's different, but because they don't know what voicemail is.
Yeah, well, you know who always calls me back even if it is a butt dial, and that's my father. He's 85 years old, and if he sees you on caller ID, it means it must have been important.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's how it used to be.
of course. Of course, and you got a busy signal and you had to try for 3 hours. But now we're aging ourselves out.
Well, no, like yesterday with my when I did my jury duty, you got to call in the night before, and it's like busy, 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 busy. I'm like, geez, I mean, I haven't heard busy signal on a call in so long.
Yeah.
Didn't even know it was still there.
Yep.
But again, enough about us with what we're doing. All right, so you started this company, which I want to go back. You said you
Yeah.
borrowed from your life insurance. So
Yeah.
you did you learn how to do whole life back then?
I did. I did. I learned that at a very early age. I was very fortunate that my folks, bought a policy on me when I was a teenager,
Okay, so
you know,
your
and
folks did.
my folks, essentially, I learned from them to do that. And, when my daughter was born, as soon as she had a social security number, she had a 529 college savings plan and a whole life insurance policy. And that was just sort of what I do. And we suggest that for a lot of folks at given points. But the life insurance was a godsend. I used it once to buy my first home, and I used it once to start my company. And when I think about all the assets I've ever owned, that one has paid in ridiculous, ridiculous ROI because of the use of capital and the access to capital favorably when no one else would lend to me.
Now, do you sell that too through your process of what you do now, or does somebody else do that for you?
No, we have an insurance division for our company. We have folks who do that, and we're agnostic in terms of carriers and companies and so forth. And our clients pay us a flat fee for financial planning, and then we'll provide the analysis, the recommendations, and if they'd like us to implement things for them, we can. And if they prefer to do it on their own or with somebody else, they're free to do that also. So ultimately, it's all about who implements and are they taking those recommendations. And so, yes, if they decide to implement with us, we do the insurance work ourselves.
The reason I bring that up is because you hear infinite banking more
Yeah.
than you've ever heard it. I actually heard it back in 2005 and four. It was one guy who was really big in our industry,
Okay.
getting us to do refinances and having these people put money in there into something like that, and then everybody lost their homes.
Yeah. No, I think the idea of borrowing against your home to do that was a very bad idea. I don't ever suggest people take debt on to do it. But if you've already hit your financial independent target, if you've already set aside, it doesn't mean you're already financially independent, but if you're on track, if you know what you're putting away and you're doing the investing and the retirement plans and all the things you need to do, and you have bandwidth, this becomes an extra. It's not the first stop on the train, but it's great if you have the bandwidth to do it.
No, I know a lot of people who do this, and then they talk. They do it's all over the place. They do it on TikTok. They talk about it and everything else, how to do it, and because it's a great way to use your own money to do things and helps you down the road. Plus, it
In
has an insurance benefit.
in so many ways, in so many ways. I actually wrote a white paper and put it out online about the 4 places that most Americans can put money where, done right, it's never taxed again during their lifetimes. And the 4 areas, one of them is whole life insurance, one of them is 529 plans, one of them is HSAs, health savings accounts, and one of them is the Roths. And if you want to play some tax games and you want to try and have some tax diversification and money that you don't have to pay income taxes on at various stages of your life, those are the 4 places to put it. That doesn't mean you do that to the exclusion of other things, but that's certainly a huge part of my personal financial plan.
Yeah. So basically, you're talking about diversifying what you're doing, so you're not all in one area.
Absolutely. There's so many people who we'll see who have, $4 million in their 401k, but nothing else other than maybe a house. And the problem with that is that not only do you have required distributions, but every dollar that you take into your world is now taxable the same as a paycheck.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you, and this is not a political statement either, but the government's broke. And at some point, tax rates may very well be a bunch higher than they are now. We may look back on this as the good old days in terms of income tax rates.
Yeah, if they don't pass the tax thing that they're trying to get passed, everybody's end of this year, your tax rates are going back up.
Right, the Tax Cuts and Job Act from 2017, that's supposed to sunset at the end of 2025. We'll see what happens. Anytime Congress has to act to make something happen, I always expect them to do nothing. So the default is always do nothing, and that means that I expect that it will potentially expire, or at least in part.
I don't think it will. I think they're going to pass it, because if they don't pass it, the Republican next year, they're going to lose the House.
The Republicans definitely want to pass that. That's correct. And they certainly have the numbers to do it right now. I just don't know if it's at the top of their list. They have so many things, but we'll see.
Well,
We'll see. I hope you're right. I hope it does get extended, but we'll see.
Well, I think it's one of the tops. It's just getting all the problem with the Republicans. Democrats are always together, no matter if they're right or wrong. Republicans always go their own way, and it's like, all right, come on, kids, let's get together and go the same way today.
Well, we'll see. It's not as splintered as it once was, so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, shoot somebody in the ear, and that's amazing what will happen.
We're going down a different rabbit hole than I guess, today, my friend.
I have no problem, because I think most of us are in the middle. There's just those little fringes on the outside that are so loud that drives us all crazy.
Yeah.
But most of us are in the middle, whether you think you're a Democrat or a Republican, independent. We're pretty much all in the middle, want the same thing. There's just those fringes on each side. And that's from my talk radio days.
Well, it's 100% true. Most of us are purple, not red or blue. I will tell you that, over the course of my lifetime, I have more than once been in therapy. I'm not afraid to admit that on your show. And I once had a therapist say, I don't think you have mental illness. I think you're a pissed off libertarian. I said, that's the greatest diagnosis I've ever heard in my life. I think you're right.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get back to your company, growing your company.
Yeah.
Any major hurdles growing that over so many years? Any Edison moments that you're like, oh man, this is almost because I've talked to people who are like, I was almost bankrupt with the company. Luckily it turned around, and other things, and other people, lost I had a guy lost $50 million.
Wow.
That was his Edison moment. Yeah.
I'm delighted to say I never lost $50 million. However, I will say that being a company that was finally turning the corner in 2007, and then to hit the recession in 2008, 2009, that hurt. Where COVID was pretty good for our business in a lot of ways, the recession was horrendous, because when you have equity markets drop 40% in 6 weeks, if you run a profitable firm and you're at 35 or 40% profit, you go from running a great ship to having no earnings at all in weeks. And that's what happened. So, we had to be more resilient than we expected. I'll tell you that I've made so many mistakes. I saw the write-up on your show, and it was talking about all the big mistakes that you've made. And I'm thinking, man, I hope this is a long show, because I've got so many I could share with you. But, I started doing a lot of different things to try and grow the company. And it wasn't until I got some bandwidth, some capacity, and some really good partners. Like, doing it myself, all of us have blind spots, horrendous blind. And the first people I brought in arguably were mini-me's, because that's what I knew. And if you have 2 or 3 people in the organization and they're all the same, you've got the same blind spots. That is a recipe for disaster. And I'm not a manager. Being an entrepreneur is sort of, and I could be a serial entrepreneur, quite frankly, because I enjoy the creation more than the management. So
So,
now
so do I.
I've got a firm that I get to grow and I get to promote and I get to build brand awareness and I get to help the organization, but I'm not running it. I manage nobody. I'm the worst supervisor ever.
Yeah.
I just don't do it. And when I had to do it, it was not always a great place to work because I wasn't suited for that. So lots of mistakes. I think we did 2 transactions over the years, and they were very different. One, we acquired a firm in the Midwest, and we brought the principal over and helped her retire. And financially, it worked out to be a very good deal, but culturally, it was not good for us, unfortunately. We also then added another senior level person from sort of the DC metro area, so not real far from us. And it's been a total home run, and she's my successor. So you don't always know what you don't know. I know that we spend a great amount of time at being different than the field. We are salmon. We're swimming upstream. We're doing things other firms simply don't do or don't know how to do or won't do. Couple examples. One, we don't have an asset minimum. So many firms say if you don't have $5 million or $2 million, whatever, don't bother calling us. And we decided to swim against that and to build a profitable way to do a financial plan and a financial planning service that's affordable to the vast majority of American families. And so that makes us a little bit different. And we have other firms who are saying, we don't know how to do it. Can we send those families to you? And the answer is absolutely. We'll be delighted. So that's one. We're doing financial wellness. Financial wellness is becoming a buzzword, but so many companies are struggling with this, trying to figure it out to get their employees some knowledge. But most of them are using an app. And, in my world, an app is interesting for a couple of weeks. It's motivating and fun. And then you move on to the next shiny thing and you stop doing it. And it doesn't change your life. It might change your behavior for a short time. But we're actually putting boots on the ground and meeting with employees where they work and spending time with them in a way where we're not representatives of the company. We don't do 401k plans and employee benefits. And so we're not a threat to the HR team. We're not a threat to the vendors. We just are a value add, and employees who are worried about money aren't thinking about work. Money's a little like oxygen that way. If you have enough, you don't think about it. And if you don't, that's all you're thinking about.
Yeah, and it puts pressure on people that they don't always want to have that pressure on people.
Well, and if you've got a sales team and they're starving, customers or clients can smell that desperation like a dog smells fear. If you need to sell something more than somebody needs to buy it, you're in trouble. And so I think it's nice that we're able to do that a little differently. Another thing, our entire firm, Ed, is our financial advisors are salaried. So many places it's like an eat what you kill, and they compete with each other, and it's all about who's the advisor of the month. And we don't do any of that. We literally share entirely. And we have incentives for people who are terrific producers, but at the end of the day, no one's incented to sell anything to anyone ever. And so it's a little different. And I think clients are very disarmed and comfortable at the idea that they can come in, they can get good objective advice. And if they decide to implement it, great. And if they don't, that's up to them. But we don't have to, there's no product. There's no thing that has to happen in order for a relationship to be consummated.
So I want to back up a second. You were talking about how as the employee, entrepreneur,
Yeah.
you were not a good manager.
Terrible.
And I was like, and yeah, so was I. So am I.
Terrible.
And the problem is, I want to go, we try to do it to a certain point because you don't have a choice when you first get started. But as soon as you can hire somebody to, your first hire should be that person, potentially be the manager but you also need somebody else to hire that person because you'll hire yourself.
Yeah. And I did. I found people very much like me. And, we use the disc profile now on some of the different metrics. And if you're a high D on the disc profile and you run into other high Ds, you're going to have conflict. It's like Neanderthals. And so that is that driving personality that does it does linger in entrepreneurs. It's resident in a lot of entrepreneurs. You can collaborate with people, but ultimately the buck's got to stop with one. And if there's too many folks with that same drive and that same energy, and they don't agree on something, there's fireworks.
Yeah. Now, anything you want to add to what we've been talking about before I change it to your book?
No. Let's talk about the book.
All right. So let's talk about your book. Your book,
Yeah.
Don't retire, graduate. Is that the
Yeah.
name? Okay.
Yeah. I think retirement in its current form is horrendous for people, and no one should do it. And when I say that, people look at me like one eyebrow goes up, like, what are you talking about? But the fact is, to retire is to disappear, to retreat, to surrender, to quit. And, for people who hate their job, I get it. Sometimes that's, I can't wait to be done. But if you're in a position where you can build financial independence, to me, retirement is the absence of needing to work, not the absence of work itself. People don't go from 50 and 60 hours a week of productive life to daytime TV and shuffleboard and an occasional round of golf and thrive. They don't.
No,
Crossword puzzles are not enough to keep you sharp.
they're
And
gone within a few months.
yeah, they don't live very long and they're unhappy. And, I don't know about you, but my wife doesn't want me puttering around the house looking for something to do. It's like, hey, what are we doing today? Go to work. So for me, I think retirement has to be rethought. I mean, in the UK, retirement means going to bed. You're going to sleep for the night when you retire for the evening. That's the English language. It's like a dirt nap. Forget it. If you look on LinkedIn and you look on some of the different sites and you see people, and they talk about what they do for a living, if it just says retired, it might as well say deceased. No one's going to say there's somebody I got to get to know. And so the book and the courses and the workbook and all the different things and the podcast, all don't retire, graduate, is this idea that we should be moving towards the next chapter of our adult lives. Retirement in that sense could be half our adult lives. You're talking 30 plus years. It's not like, our grandparents who worked from 18 to 65 and they were dead at 72. I mean, you could live to be
There are still those
104.
people now.
You
There
better have
still
something
are
to
those.
do.
Yeah, there's still those people.
There are, but if you have the ability and the health and some of the habits, I think there's more to it than just being done and sitting back and doing nothing. I just think it's a very tragic way to end a good life, and stay active. People ask you, when somebody asks you who you are, uh, so many adults, especially in the US, but I've seen this in other places too. People tend to associate who we are with what we do. Tell me about yourself. Oh, I'm a financial advisor. I'm an architect. I'm an engineer. No, that's what you do. Who are you? I'm a husband and a father and a hockey fan and a traveler and whatever. You got lots of things. There's lots of things that you are. It's not just what you do. And if you tie your entire identity to what you do for a living, and then you suddenly wake up one Monday and you don't do it anymore, your identity's gone. And it's actually terrible. So the book is designed to be a path to financial independence. It's very simply written. It's not a textbook. It's a fun read. It's in first person. There's quizzes and exercises and things along the way. And I don't believe in homework, so there's extra credit at the end of each chapter. And if you do every extra credit assignment, you will wind up with a financial plan. And it is essentially a recipe, a roadmap to making work optional so that you can figure out what you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah. So what you just said. So I'm former military.
Okay.
So vets who get out of the service, that's the
Yeah.
same problem. We lose our purpose. And
Mhm.
so you do it for so long, whether it's, 4 years, 8 years, 20 years, you eventually lose your purpose and you lose your way. But so it's the same thing we will go through. So veterans already went through that. So when they go into another job, they understand that, hey, this is my purpose, but it's not what it's going to be there forever. And they have to learn that. And so I do another podcast called Helping the Brave, which is about
Mm.
that your transition and stuff like that. And my biggest thing for most vets is we've never went back to get our benefits from the injuries we got while we were in the service because we're too proud to. And
Mm.
you need to go back. So if you deal with any veterans, have them go back and get their benefits that they are deserved, because I'm talking anywhere from knee issues, back issues, whatever, a certain percentage of disability they can get. If they most people think 100% disabled means that you don't have any legs or arms or that kind of stuff. That's not what that means. That's just added up to that amount of disability.
Yeah.
That's almost 60 grand a year if you tax it. Non-taxable, it's like 48,000. So it's just additional money that they could have for retirement and also during the time while they're living.
It's excellent advice, and you're absolutely right. There's definitely a pride factor. I know, and look, we're all guilty of it in our own ways. When I started my career, my first job out of college, I made so little money. I qualified for the gas and electric company's assistance program, and I refused to use it because I said that's not, I'm not the person it's supposed to be for. I'm going to find a way. I'll get a roommate. I'll do some things, but we're all proud. I think we're all proud in a different way, and veterans especially, and first responders in general. And our company, we have a program for our heroes, and we actually discount our services for anyone who is current or former military, first responders, police, fire, paramedic, and so forth. And that's just a thank you. It's the Hometown Heroes program, and we believe pretty strongly in that.
Yeah. No, there's the biggest problem for most of us vets, especially my age or a little bit younger, is when we got out, they fought us. They didn't want to give it. They didn't want to give it. Or whoever helped us didn't do it right. Now, in the last 8 years, it's gotten easier and easier to get the benefits you deserve. So everybody should go back sorry, I have a studio in my house. I hear my wife's dog howling in the other room. Must have been a ambulance going by or something.
Okay. I don't hear it, so that's all right. It's not on the broadcast.
That's why I have really good mics.
There you go.
And Rodecaster, you don't hear all that stuff, because if you could hear things, you'd hear my American Bully underneath my desk snoring like nobody's business.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He is always by me. I found him on the trail, and he's now my dog for the last 3 years.
Oh man, it's great to have a companion like that. Yeah. I don't know who's walking whom.
Yeah. Well, the big deal is, if I ever go back to the office full time, he will have to come with me because he's so connected.
Huh? That's people with pets and so forth. There's definitely a lot of that. There are a lot of workplaces that are pet friendly now.
Well, I mean, things are changing. There are pet friendly, but again, you still has to be a pet that's friendly.
Well, true. I mean, if the pet is dangerous, that's
I know, but American Bullies have a bad name. They're not aggressive dogs, and that they've been abused just like kids.
So. Fair enough.
All right, Eric, anything else you want to add today before we go?
And at the end of the day, I think this is all about financial literacy, financial education, financial independence. And the entrepreneur journey is a ton of fun. There's risk involved. And for people who don't have a financial advisor or a financial plan, there are ways to get that. And so the book, Don't Retire, Graduate, is available online on Amazon and so forth. And if you just want to read more about those 4 ways to not pay a lot of taxes when you're older, go to lowtaxbook.com. It's free. It's a download, and anybody who's listening can check that out and learn more about not only the life insurance aspect, but those other vehicles as well.
Again, Eric, thank you so much for being on the show today. Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.